It's my honor and pleasure to be here, and I am so thrilled, not only because of the wonderful music, but also because of the fellowship. And I see so many familiar faces. I see my friends. And I want to solve a mystery, because there's I read. So there's this thought bubble above you. Why does he always stand in the back before he comes to the platform? So it's a multiple choice question. Number one, he wants to be a diva like Diana Ross and enter from the back when everybody else enters from the stage. Number two, he fidgets. And when you're on film and you're fidgeting, you take away from everybody else on the platform. Or number three, he's on his phone because there's a last-minute emergency at the Tacoma Park Metaphysical Chapel, and he needs to deal with that. So which do you vote for? All of them. Okay. It's my honor and pleasure to be here. And what I want to talk about today is using your GPS, your God positioning system. Now, one of the universal needs that we have as humans is that we all want the blessed assurance that we're on the right track and that everything is okay. We want it in our cars when we're en route to a destination, and we want it in our lives. Now, in our cars, many of us have a GPS system, those newfangled things, right? In our lives, we do too. In our lives, we have a GPS system called a God positioning system. And it will guide us to our destination in the same way that our cars will guide us to our destination. In our cars, we want to get from Silver Spring, Maryland to Sunnyside and the Hawthorne Center. In our lives, we want to get to peace, fulfillment, joy, grace, a sense of oneness with all that is, and a remembrance and an acknowledgement of that one power, and an awareness that that one power lives within us. Since we're doing The Wizard of Oz, there's a song from The Wiz called Home, right? And we all want to get home, but that home is an energetic place. That place of peace, that place of awareness of our oneness with the one power, that place of remembrance of ourselves as the one power. And we want to get there. So how do we get there? We use our GPS, our God positioning system. Now, in our cars, our GPS transmitter is connected to a satellite. And these things are amazing, especially the modern ones. I bought a modern car recently, and this thing is amazing. It can do diagnostics. It can download them from the satellite. It can bring out new software to make the car run better. And some of the cars run so much by software these days that if there's a bug in the software, the cars won't run. It can tell you how many miles you've got till you get to a gas station. Jim, use my name, Jim. I'm like, what? Jim, what? I guess when I registered, it got my name, and it says my name. Jim, you only have 8 miles to go. You should get to a gas station. And by the way, there's a Shell that you often use, and it's on your way to your destination. How do they know that? It's like stuff from Knight Rider. I forget to lock my car, so you can lock it remotely from the phone. It also learns my habits, which I kind of already alluded to. It knows that on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and sometimes on Wednesdays, if it's 6 o'clock and I'm getting in my car, I'm on the way to hot yoga. And it says, Jim, you're going to hot yoga. I can take you there. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. However, as amazing as this is, it has absolutely nothing on God's GPS. Our car transmitter is connected to a satellite, but you have a transmitter in you, your heart, your mind, your energy, and that is connected to the one power, the one source. And as soon as we turn on that GPS, we feel that connection. We feel that sense of love. We feel that sense of guidance, and we know that it will guide us on the right track. We can use that GPS to get back home to the love, light, sense of faith, and sense of peace where we all yearn to be. That is our natural state when we are in alignment with the one power, and the heaven on earth that results when we are at one with the one power. And just like our car GPS has an embedded program that has all kinds of maps and traffic data and route data and driving conditions and speed trap data and police car data, which is so useful, and red light camera data, which for me is even more useful, our internal GPS is connected to the data of the universe, all of the wisdom, all of the love, all of the grace, and all of the resources that we need to get back home. So with all this data, you would think it's impossible to get lost. But how many of us have ever gotten lost despite the GPS system? How many of us have wound up on a dead end despite the GPS system, or on the edge of a lake with the street that we're supposed to be on the other side of the lake? We get lost. My niece, she got lost. She was a young driver, and she was coming to New York, right? And she's from Pittsburgh. So if you know if you have a rudimentary sense of geography, you know that if she's in Pittsburgh, in order to get to New York, you have to come due east, then you have to go due north. Well, she came due east, but she's a lot like me. She was moving and grooving to the sounds on the radio. And when it got time to go to 95, she got onto 95 south. She got lost. I'm like, Renee, where are you? She said, I'm in Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington, Delaware is not on the way to New York from Pittsburgh. She got lost. Well, we often get lost too. We often can slip. We often can slip from our connection with our GPS. When we slip from our connection to our GPS, just like Renee found herself in a bad neighborhood in Wilmington, Delaware, we can get lost as well. When we slip into a consciousness of duality and out of the consciousness of oneness, we slip and we get lost when we have temporary amnesia and we forget that this one power, this one force, this one source is always with us, is always guiding us, and lives within us. And our humanity comes up for healing, for all things are lessons God would have us learn. So in that moment when we got lost, there's a lesson for us to learn, there's a blessing for us to experience, and there's a reawakening and a re-awareness that awaits us that is designed by our soul. So the main reason we get lost is we forget that we are one with this power and that this power is one with us. We forget, and when we forget, we slip into another consciousness. We slip into a consciousness where we believe that we've been banished from the kingdom of heaven, where we are the prodigal children, and that we must go through trials and tribulations to work our way back into God's graces. And we forget that we have never left the garden of God's love, but that we are the flowers of God's garden. Anybody ever forget? Anybody ever feel unloved? Forget that the source of love is not that person, but the source of love is the source, the one power? Anybody ever forget? Yeah, we all forget, and we get lost. And just like Renee got lost in a, quote, bad neighborhood in Wilmington, Delaware, we get lost, and we get lost in certain hoods. We get lost in victimhood. Anybody ever get lost in victimhood? Yes. Forgetting that there is one power and we are not victims of it, that there is a consciousness within us that has come to awareness in order for us to heal So we're lost in victimhood. Anybody ever been lost on Blame Street? Where we blame something outside of ourselves for this divine opportunity for growth and healing that our soul has designed in order to bring us home. Anybody ever get lost on Blame Street? Just wondering. So what can we do to use our GPS when we get lost? What can we do to use our GPS when we get lost? Well, I asked Spirit, and I got 3 points. So I'm going to share these 3 points with you, and then I'm out. Number one, because I know some people like to do notes. Number one, decide your destination. Number two, choose your route. And number three, continually recalculate. So I'm going to repeat those because I know some people like to write notes. Number one, if you want to use your GPS, your God positioning system, decide your destination. Number two, choose your route. And number three, continually recalculate. What do I mean when I say decide your destination? Well, Dr. Lisa Gordon said it so perfectly in her reading, I don't have to spend much time on this so I can blow through it. But A Course in Miracles, lesson 152 says, the power of decision is my own. Harkening back to Dr. Lisa Gordon's reading, we can decide. Do I see this through the eyes of victimhood? Do I see this through the eyes of my ego and my past pain and my past feelings of unworthiness and undeservingness? Or do I see this through the eyes of God, that one power, that one source, that one power that is within me, and see myself as holy, beloved, innocent, perfect, and secure in that oneness, in that one energy? How do I see this? And what is my destination? Is my destination home, or do I want to stay in victimhood? Is my destination home, or do I want to stay in Blame Street? Do I want to be right, or do I want to be at peace? Do I want to be justified in my ego's perceptions of the world as something against me, as Dr. Lisa alluded to in her reading? Or do I forget about that and realize that that's just not what is real, but what is real is this one power around me and this one power within me, and the truth that the two are one. And when I make that blessed union, that holy union, I am whole, I am complete, I am happy, and I am fulfilled. So that power is our own, and I call it our spiritual superpower. The power of choice, the power that we can use over and over again for when we realize that we're not going home, when we realize that we're in Wilmington, Delaware, and we're supposed to be in Manhattan meeting our uncle who's waiting there with Broadway tickets. We can choose again, and we can always choose again. Sometimes we go on the wrong destination, the false gold. In my new book, The Soul of Prosperity, I talk about how we have let others define our prosperity destination for us. And so we have this image of what perfect is supposed to look like, and then we beat ourselves up if we've not met that destination, when that destination is just a mirage anyway, because the perfection that society told us our lives are supposed to look like doesn't exist. But the perfection within us is all there is. That light within us is all there is, and that is our home, and that light within us will lead us to whatever outer circumstances support that light, and that light will draw the outer circumstances that support it to us, and that union, that power will get us to prosperity if we no longer define it by outer circumstances, but define it by what already is, the light within, the power within, and the oneness we have with that power. Amen?
Yes.
So that power is our own. We can decide our destination. You decide your destination when you type it in or you speak it into your GPS. Where do you want to go? And sometimes the car will even ask you, these smart cars, where are you going, Jimmy? And I say, I'm going to the grocery store. I said, well, there's a Giant right down the street. Okay, let's go there. I'll take you. Okay. And then it's more like, okay, because then the car does everything else. But you know, sometimes you get alternate routes. It says, there are two ways to do this, Jimmy. There are two ways to do this, Jimmy. You can go Georgia Avenue, or you can go Colesville Road. You can go 95, or you can go 29. There are two ways to do this. You have to choose your route. Well, guess what? We can choose the path of least resistance, or we can choose to go through the bad hoods. Amen? Yes. Now, what I would recommend is choosing the path of least resistance and avoiding the bad hoods like victimhood or blame street or Brokeback Mountain, where we believe that there is something broken about us and we forget about the divine light, the divine perfection, the divine energy, the divine oneness within us, and we forget that that is who we really are. Where we forget, because quite often we have felt like we were left-handed in a right-handed world. And we didn't realize that whatever our left-handedness was actually the tool for our healing, our growth, and our transformation. Just like Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, didn't realize that his red nose had a perfect. And each and every one of us are perfect for God's purpose. Rudolph's red nose was perfect for God's purpose for Rudolph. And so the early part of his life, he was shunned. They wouldn't let him join in any reindeer games. He was different, right? But he was perfect for God's purpose, which had yet to be revealed. You are perfect for God's purpose, which is revealing itself as you allow it and sit and listen. Amen? Yes. So choose your route. I choose the route of least resistance. I choose to sit and listen to God instead of listening to the world. I choose to be at one with the one power. I choose to meditate. I choose to pray, because when I meditate, I listen to God. When I pray, I ask God. And when I do this, I am in this blessed divine union with this one power, this one force, this one source. And this source is continually feeding me love. The source is continually feeding me light. The source is continually feeding me grace. The source is continually reminding me of who I am when the world tells me who I'm not. Amen? Amen. So, anytime we slip off our route, all we have to do is consult our GPS, our God positioning system, that satellite called the one force, that satellite called the one power. And quite often, we do this when we get lost. But what would happen if we did this before we got lost? Wouldn't you rather avoid the ditch than wind up in the ditch? Wouldn't you rather avoid winding up at the edge of the lake instead of being at the edge of the lake? Wouldn't you rather wind up at your destination on time instead of showing up sweaty and late? Especially if you were asked to bring the appetizer, which is why I always ask, I'll bring the dessert. But Marianne Williamson said it best. And there's a lesson in A Course in Miracles, God is My Goal Today. And in her book, A Return to Love, she does a whole chapter on this. I believe it's chapter 4, where she says, God is my goal today, where you connect with the one source, the one power, the one force. And if that is your goal, all your other goals you will be led to, and they will be led to you easily and effortlessly. And that tracks with something in the Bible. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added unto you. When you connect with that one source, when you connect with that one power, when you connect with that one grace, when you are one with that one power, everything happens in wondrous synchronicity. And let God. Amen? Yes. So when you get lost, even if you're on the route you want to go to, what do? You continually recalculate. Remember those old Garmins and TomToms? They were so annoying. Because every turn it would go, recalculating, 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 recalculating. Well, guess what? If we were continually recalculating, we would get to our destination easily and effortlessly as well. That destination of home. If we were continually recalculating. Because life imitates God. We have to continually recalculate. Get a download of God's love. Get a download saying, oh, this is the way that would be troublesome for you. This is the way of peace. Get a download saying, this is the way that would be difficult. This is the way that is easy. Get a download. You are loved. You are loving. You are lovable. You are love-able. Get a download that causes you to feel that you are at one with the light, at one with the one force, the one source. Get a download. And each time you get a download, you get God's perspective. Because you know God can see around the corners we can't, right? Yeah. That's why you use the GPS, because they can see around the corners that you can't. They can see where you're going, and they can see the whole route where we only see the steps in front of us, right? So what do? We decide our destination, and that power of decision is our own. We choose our route, whether we want to do it easily and effortlessly, or whether we want to go through all the bad neighborhoods, victimhood, Blame Street, Brokeback Mountain, and we can continually recalculate. And how do you know it's time to recalculate when things are difficult instead of easy? How do you know it's time to recalculate when things seem complex instead of simple? How do you know it's time to recalculate when you're experiencing something that you are not enjoying? When you are, because God's will for us is perfect happiness. A Course in Miracles lessons 101 to 103. God's will for us is perfect happiness. And when there is something that we are not enjoying, we know that is not God's will for us. We know that an alien will, as A Course in Miracles called it, that the alien will of our ego to punish us, to think where we think badly of us, or we believe that it is not, that good is not available to us. That alien will has superseded God's will, and that's not God's will. So we recalculate. We sit with God. We feel the love of God. We feel the light of God. We remember the grace of God. We remember God's promise. We remember God's good. And we consult our GPS. And God will lead us home. God will lead us to peace. God will lead us to happiness. God will lead us to joy. God will lead us to the guidance that will get us there. And God will lead us easily and effortlessly. And that's why God's GPS is better than anything that they can put in a car. And that's what I want to share with you today. Amen? Amen. Thank you.